Luna was 4 years the senior of her spouse. Their paths crossed at the university, where she lectured Daxton in his major subjects. While many students cast admiring glances her way, it was only Daxton who dared to step beyond mere admiration. He presented her with flowers weekly, showered her with praises, and in spite of her persistent rejections, unwaveringly pursued her for a date. When he collected his diploma from the dean's office after his final year, it was Luna who greeted him. They struck up a conversation about Daxton's future aspirations, and just as he was about to depart, she uttered the decisive words, "I agree." Daxton instantly grasped her meaning. Their academic connection was in the past. They were free to explore a relationship as equals. Just then, a colleague of Luna's walked into the office, prompting their conversation to pause. However, Daxton didn't waste any time, and later that evening, he messaged her on a social media platform, detailing the when and where of their impending rendezvous. Overwhelmed with joy, he found sleep elusive that night. During their initial outing, Luna revealed her mutual affection, explaining her previous restraint due to the professional risks involved. Understandingly, Daxton nodded. "Now, the important thing is we can be together." He gave her a reassuring smile. After building up some savings, he decided it was time to pop the question to his sweetheart. They opted out of throwing a wedding bash, choosing instead to stash away the cash to eventually buy their own place. At the outset of their journey, they had to reside with his folks, and then moved into a tiny, shabby rental due to financial constraints. Eventually, a buddy of Daxton's convinced him to venture into entrepreneurship. Luna was vehemently against it at first, but eventually, she relented after much persuasion from her husband. Over time, they racked up loans and credit, and Daxton threw himself into the business with gusto. However, the further down the road they went, the more business-related issues cropped up, making it increasingly clear that success was out of reach. The enterprise sank, leaving Daxton and his partner drowning in debt. To add to their woes, Daxton and Luna had recently welcomed a baby girl, and they had just taken out a mortgage for their apartment. They needed substantial funds to cover everything. Desperate, Daxton began taking any job he could find, scrambling to pull his family out of the financial mess. Luna, unable to bear watching her husband's struggles from the sidelines, decided she couldn't just twiddle her thumbs at home. They arranged for the grandmothers to care for their daughter, allowing Luna to join the workforce. It wasn't a walk in the park, though, as employers were reluctant to hire a woman with a young child. Luna faced a slew of rejections before finally hearing those long-awaited words, "You're hired," from a firm. That marked one of the best days they'd had in a while, but Luna's joy was fleeting. One fine day, her boss beckoned her to his office for a work-related discussion. "Luna, I need to have a chat with you." Reese grinned. "Certainly," Luna responded, and what she heard left her utterly shocked. The boss began with compliments, expressing his delight at having such an exceptional employee in his firm. A missing puzzle piece, so to speak. However, there was a catch. In order to remain with them, Luna had to become intimate with him. The proposition was overwhelming. The woman gazed at her superior, her eyelashes fluttering in silence. She mumbled that she understood and needed time to think, then swiftly departed the office, making a beeline for the bathroom. It was there that she succumbed to retching. Managing to hold herself together until the end of the workday, Luna hurried home, locking herself in the bathroom where she wept for hours on end. The situation was even grimmer than she had imagined. Securing this job had been an arduous task, and her family desperately needed it. The next payment for their debt loomed near, and time was ticking away. The daunting prospect of losing her source of income left Luna terrified. When Daxton arrived home, she chose to keep the boss's proposal a secret, planning not to let her husband be privy to it. Even if she were to agree to his terms, she wanted Daxton to remain oblivious. The following day, she trudged into work, fully aware of what she would say to Reese. Midway through the workday, he summoned Luna into his office, and she knew precisely why. "I accept," she stated as she crossed the threshold of his office. A satisfied smile appeared on the man's face. "I am delighted to hear that, Luna. You've made the right decision." Luna was caught between a chuckle and a sob. She inquired whether she could leave, and with a nod of approval, she made her shaky way to work on trembling limbs. Facing her husband and meeting his gaze was a puzzle she had yet to solve. Luna excused her actions, telling herself she was performing a charitable act for the sake of her family, silently hoping Daxton would remain oblivious to the lengths she had gone to achieve this. Each day, her anticipation grew as she awaited a call from Reese. Each knock at the door sent her heart leaping, causing her to nervously jitter in her seat. Her desk mate, noticing her anxious demeanor, wondered aloud if Luna was okay, or if she needed any assistance. Exhausted and lacking sleep, Luna brushed it off as hypersensitivity to her surroundings. Her attentive coworker chose not to pry further. The suspense wore heavily on her, and Luna considered taking the initiative to approach her boss about his earlier suggestion. However, as though he had tapped into her thoughts, Reese called her into his office at last. Securing the door behind them, he positioned Luna on the edge of his desk, caressed her face gently, and inquired softly, "Will you come to my place this evening?" With a melancholy smile, Luna nodded, her options feeling painfully limited. Reese mentioned he would arrange a taxi to pick her up from her residence and sent her off early to prepare for the evening. After persuading her mother to extend her babysitting duties, Luna frantically prepped to leave, aiming to exit before Daxton made it back home. Her mother eyed her daughter's disheveled look with a hint of astonishment, but remained silent. At Reese's residence, she consumed vodka, hoping to erase the memories as swiftly as possible. As the man started to undress her, she uttered in a blurred voice, "Is he certain he'll stick to his promise?" The chief murmured into her ear that he was trustworthy and that she could verify this with any colleague. The sudden awareness that her office peers were in on the secret struck her like a bolt of lightning, only to dissipate quickly as the liquor took effect. Luna staggered back to her house when all her loved ones were deep in slumber. Finding her husband dozing on the sofa alongside their daughter, she was engulfed with shame. She spent a long hour in the bathroom, scrubbing away the remnants of the previous night. The following month transformed into a torturous ordeal for Luna. She barely spoke to her husband, unable to face him without breaking down, suffered from fitful sleep, and was haunted by dreams of her encounter with Reese, even harboring a conflicted desire for it to happen again. Despite the turmoil, Luna resolved to reveal her transgressions to her husband. Come what may, she pondered, and during a late-night dinner, she divulged the night's events. Her husband heard her confession with a bowed head. Luna braced for a reaction, but instead heard an unexpected response. Daxton apologized, sought her forgiveness for putting her in that position, and pledged to find it in his heart to forgive his wife for the desperate measures she had taken. For nearly 3 years, their household basked in a serene harmony. They methodically cleared their debts and started to rebuild their lives. But one unexpected day, as Luna returned from work, she was met with the stark absence of her husband's belongings. He had left behind only a note, explaining his inability to continue their life together and his decision to leave in search of financial stability. Daxton assured he would reach out to her once he was able to. However, upon his return months later, he requested a divorce. In a different city, he had encountered someone new, leading him to realize that he had never truly forgiven Luna. They proceeded to sell their shared apartment and went their separate ways. Daxton to the arms of his new partner, and Luna, alongside her daughter, sought refuge at her parents' home. Despite the upheaval, she clung to her job, her sole means of financial support. Suffering under the yoke of loneliness, Luna often reflected on her actions and what kind of life she might have led if she had never confessed.